This is This Week in Science and Education, episode 34, Learning Science at the Museums. Hey everybody, it's time for This Week in Science and Education. This is your host, Kevin Cougler. We're live today at Canada Science and Technology Museums Corporation here in Ottawa, Ontario, doing a special show for you on location. We're going to talk to Marie-Sophie, who is actually from Agriculture Museum here in Ottawa. But before we get to her, I do want to welcome again my co-host, Colin Jagoe. Hey, Colin.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good. We've had a good day here today.
We've had an awesome day today. Get the back tour of the back lot. Saw some stuff that's not out in public display. It was really cool to look through some of the things that they had back there and talk to the people who make the magic happen around the museum. It was a lot of fun.
Well, they've been very accommodating too, which we really appreciate. What was the favorite part of your tour this morning?
This is going to sound silly, but that Bachman Cummings car blew me away. There was just a car back there that used to be owned by Burton Cummings and then was sold to Randy Bachman, and they found a demo tape in the back seat that then became a demo. It was just really cool to see that, and it's now part of the museum collection in the back there. Really cool stuff.
I liked it when they allowed us to take one of the archive cars out for a test drive around the parking lot.
I missed that.
Oh, you missed?
I missed that. I was busy, learning.
Well, that's all right. Priorities, I guess.
I guess.
Anyways, we could go on like this all day, but perhaps we should
usually
welcome our guest here. This is Marie-Sophie. Marie's from Agriculture Museum here in Ottawa. Thank you very much for joining us on the show here today.
My pleasure.
Maybe
Thank
you
you
could,
for having me.
it's our pleasure. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at the Agriculture Museum.
For sure. I'm the manager of the visitor experience at the Canada Agriculture Museum, and that job involves all kinds of things. From greeting visitors to making sure we have good programs to offer to making sure that we have the resources to do them. It's a pretty full job, but it's so much fun, and being surrounded by animals and on a farm makes it really, really great.
Tell us a little bit about how you integrate animals into the programming then.
Well, and that's always a little bit tricky, right? Because there is nothing that you can do with animals that would be command performance.
So these are live animals.
They are sure live animals, and they're work animals, right?
Okay.
So they're there. We have a herd of dairy cows, and they're there to produce milk, and that's their job, and you're interrupting them on their job.
Sorry,
so,
are you bringing one on camera here in a second? Did you bring any with you?
Well, I considered it, but unfortunately could not do it.
Okay.
So that's always a challenge, but it makes the experience that much more real, right? When you get to see where your food comes from, when you really get to understand how we grow the different fibers that are around you, when you really find out where that fuel that we're talking about, the ethanol and all of that, where does that come from? So I think being surrounded by those really live, clearly, components make the experience that much more interesting. We integrate animals in all parts of our programming. One of my favorite ones is our genetics program, where you really get to understand how different genes work by figuring out which bull should be crossed with which cow to make the best offspring. Now, when I learned genetics in high school, we used fruit flies. Nowhere near as interesting. So to be able to do it with the dairy cows makes it that much clearer, and you get to understand those recessive and dominant traits that much better.
Very cool.
Now, so if I'm a young student out there and I have a wool sweater on and I'm watching the podcast here today, maybe tell them where does that wool come from?
Well, that, my friend, is a different story, right? We have at the museum all kinds of different sheep, and every year they get shorn. And look at that. The fleece that you get from the sheep gets washed, and then gets carded, then gets spun, then gets knitted, and then you get a sweater out of it. Can you imagine that much work for one sweater?
No.
Well, that's why all kinds of other fibers were invented, but yeah.
That brings me to a question then. Do you then demonstrate start to finish in the production of those sorts of things, either with the sheep going from sheep to sweater, or going from, say, you mentioned fuel earlier, going from, say, corn to ethanol? Do you actually demonstrate in model or in process how that happens the whole way?
For some of the times we'll do that, especially in May we have a sheep shearing festival, and that's definitely where we want to show you sheep to shawl
Mhm.
to really get a good idea of the work that goes into it. For some processes that are longer, we'll use
Mhm.
models. Like
Mhm.
for the ethanol, we
Mhm.
don't want to process
Right.
corn into ethanol
Yes.
for obvious reasons. But for food, we will. One of the most fascinating things that I never get bored of is, have you guys ever made butter?
Yeah, I have actually.
And
Yeah.
it's like magic, right?
You've
Because
made
you
butter?
get
I grew up in New Brunswick, and both my grandparents owned farms, so yeah.
there you go, an experience that you need to
It
get.
just shows up. Like,
That's it.
you open the top of the bucket, and it's there.
Party
There's
man,
butter
Colin Jagoe.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? Because you get the cow that produces the milk, and to be able to produce milk, that cow has to be fed the right stuff. So you have to grow the right things. Then you take the milk, and it has to have the right components of fat and so on and so forth. And then you shake it, and then you get butter, like
Mhm.
magic.
You made ice cream?
Yeah.
Made
good
cheese?
too. No, I've not made cheese.
Okay.
Well, so maybe there's
Like I said, I had something
another
to do at the
show,
farm.
another show at the farm where we can make cheese.
Now, describe to me, because I've never been to the Agriculture Museum. I know where the experimental farm is. I lived in Ottawa for a year and drove past it a lot. When you drive in, what do you see? Does it feel like a typical museum kind of government building, or does it feel like a farm, or is it a bit of everything?
Exactly, it's a bit of everything, and
Okay.
it's neither of these things.
Okay.
And I think that's the charm of it, right?
Mhm.
Because you come in and you'll see farm buildings, and the dairy herd is housed pretty much like most of the smaller dairy farms in Quebec and Ontario. Then the other animals, we don't really have housing that is really representative because we're just not big enough to have like a full herd of sheep and a full herd of pigs and so on and so forth. So we have a few of each to really show you different breeds and so on and so forth. So that looks different than a real farm. And then we have exhibitions with artifacts to the two that we have on right now. One is on tractors and the other one is on beekeeping.
Hmm.
And in the beekeeping exhibition, we actually have a live hive. So
Really?
you really get to see how the pollination works and so on and so forth, because bees are much more important for pollination
Mhm.
than for producing honey. So you get that feeling of museum and artifacts and how it's important to preserve our heritage, but at the same time, you're surrounded by fields and nature and machinery
Mhm.
and live animals. So
Mhm.
it's a completely different setting,
Mm.
and it's really stimulating for all of your senses.
Get out in nature and just experience it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's
See
great.
how it works.
Super. I'm just wondering, Marie-Sophie, when you have students and teachers from across Canada who want to participate, maybe they can't drive here, how can they find out some more information and maybe participate virtually in your programming?
For sure, and that's always a concern for us. We want to make sure that everybody has access to our resources. So on our website, www.agriculture.technomuses.ca, which I'm sure you'll have somewhere written.
We'll put that in the show notes. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yep.
You can find free downloadable educational activity kits.
Mm.
And those contain all kinds of lessons that are based on the curriculum to really help you, either with a visit or without, learn how agriculture can be integrated into everyday life. So that's the definitely great resource to have. And then the rest of our website has all kinds of information on our animals and our practices and so on and so forth.
Mhm. The curriculum type kits, can you give us a range of sort of, is it all grades? Is it targeted specifically to one subject? What's sort of there as a general overview?
We're building new ones every year,
Okay.
but right now what's there, I would say we have a few that are targeted at grade, at the lower grades, and then we have come out with recently one on agriculture and the environment, and one on food chains that is more
Mhm.
targeted towards the older grades.
Right.
So depending on what part of your unit, the links to the curriculum are pretty clear, and
Right.
you'll find
Good.
what works best.
Excellent.
Super. Well, on behalf of Colin and myself, I really want to thank you, Marie-Sophie, for taking the time today to join us. And we encourage all of the students out there and teachers to check out that website that we will put in our show notes. And You can see the show notes at twise.vroc.ca. That's twise.vroc.ca. Thanks again for taking the time today. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank
Thanks
you,
a
guys.
lot.
Coming up next, Melanie and Catherine from Canada Science and Technology Museums Corporation will be talking to us about science here at the museum. Join us next. Welcome back to the show. We're here sitting with Catherine and Melanie from Canada Science and Technology Museums Corporation. Welcome both of you to the show. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thanks for having us.
We're very interested to hear about what it is that you both do here at the museum. Maybe Catherine, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I'm an education and interpretation officer here at the museum. I'm mostly involved with special events, anything concerning March Break, International Year of Chemistry, International Day of Astronomy, holiday programming, all these special activities that happen in the museum. Mostly when people are off, and that's when they come to the museum for special events.
That's great. And how long have you been here at the museum?
Since September. But previously I was in our sister museum, the Canada Aviation and Space Museum.
Oh,
Okay,
So
super.
I'm moving around.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us here
Thank
today.
you.
Melanie, and what is it that you do here?
So I'm an education and interpretation officer as well, but I concentrate mostly on the astronomy programming here at the museum. So I run things from family astronomy workshops to group events to stargazing events and such like that for the public to enjoy themselves here in astronomy.
Now, I noticed that you have an observatory here on site. Is that something that you're working with on a regular basis?
Yeah, so we have an observatory. It's called the Helen Sawyer Hogg Observatory. It's a mouthful. And it houses our 15-inch refracting telescope, and that's the largest in Canada. So we're very proud of it, and we have public programming that goes on in there for our free stargazing events. And we have an astronomy educator present, and people can come and look through the telescope at planets and galaxies and things like that that they wouldn't normally get to look at from their backyard. So we have that available to the public for our group astronomy, and as well as our free stargazing, which happens once a month.
I think we should have broadcast the show from there. That would have been cool.
It is a very cool telescope. It's very historic, so it's
It's
actually
an old one, isn't it? It's a very old refractor, that one, isn't it?
yeah, it's an artifact in our museum, so we have to be very careful with it, and
Yeah.
we're lucky that we get to share it with the public. It's from 1905 is when it was at the Dominion Observatory originally in Ottawa, and it got moved here in about 1974.
Wow. Now, how do you tie in that telescope with some of the educational programming then with kids?
So we have, in school programs in the daytime, we can take our school programs into the observatory, and though we can't look at anything, we're able to show them, the giant telescope, and just as a visual, it's absolutely amazing, and show children how astronomers scientifically do things with these larger instruments that maybe they don't get to see. We also have group astronomy nights. So this is where local clubs and community organizations can come to the museum and with an astronomy educator learn things about the solar system or space, and then afterwards they get to go into the observatory for their own sort of private observing session with this 15-inch telescope, which is really great.
And how old would the normal student range be that came to participate in that type of a program?
So often our groups, any age from kindergarten to grade 12 to adults love this as well.
Yeah, I'd like to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Everybody
yeah.
would love to do these programs. Often we have cubs and brownies sort of
Right,
things.
yes.
So school-age children often will come with their groups after hours too. So you get to see the museum sort of at a time when other people don't get to see it.
Yeah.
So.
And I see you've brought some things here for us today. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you've got.
So all these sparkly, shiny things are what we make at our family astronomy workshops. So these happen also once a month at the museum. So these are different. This is more of a hands-on sort of activity that students can do. So they come with their families Friday night, so it's not a school night, and they get to come learn something about astronomy. So for example, a few weeks ago we had, it was called Sailing on the Solar Sea. So they made a solar sailboat, this is a craft that one of our children did. This is Abigail Moran's version of a solar sail, and they get to learn about how NASA does it in space as well, and then they get to make their own version of a solar sail. We've got here, this is an active galaxy, and there's a monster black hole in the center of this galaxy, and they get to, put sparkles and pom-poms and all the messy stuff. So they get to have a good time while learning about astronomy, and, we've got experts there telling them all the things and answering all their questions that they could ever want to know about astronomy.
Now, I thought, do black holes really exist, Colin? Or we haven't found one, or, we know
Yes,
they
Kevin,
exist,
they
but we
really
haven't
exist.
seen one, or...
They're black. You can't see them.
Ah, okay.
But you can see their results. You can
Well, there's
see
one right
the
there.
effect. There's one right there.
If you wanna see.
One of the effects of black holes is jets shooting out of the middle of galaxies as material spirals in and then gets shot off because of the magnetic field interaction.
So can we set that a little further away? I don't want to disappear here in a second.
Yeah, these ones are paper cups jets,
yeah, that's
so they're
right.
fairly safe.
They're,
Okay,
they're not
good.
not
In
not a whole lot of
comparison.
danger in there. Now here's a question, because something like black holes in the center of a galaxy, you know, how the jets actually form, it's pretty high intense physics in how it actually works. So doing this is really cool. The teacher in me goes, okay, where's the transference? What do the kids actually take away from building that and learning about that at the same time? What's been your experience with that?
Right, so black holes are a special topic,
They
I find,
sure
in
are.
astronomy.
Everybody wants
Everyone
to know.
wants to know about them, but astronomers don't know too much
Mhm.
about them. So there is a limit as to how much, you should, begin
Told
telling
ya.
in a public lecture. Though some kids really, they know their stuff and they want to know more. So you try to tell them as much as you can, as much as our educators will be able to tell them. But something like this, do black holes exist? That's a good question. Here, they might be asking that to themselves at home, and then they come
If you're
here
a kid,
and they build their black hole, and so they know, well, they don't build the black hole, but they
Right.
see
they see
the effects of it, and they say, well, there are galaxies out there. They learn what a galaxy is.
Sure.
It's a compilation of billions of stars and gas and dark matter, and they get to sort of build something, and they can visualize that a little easier, because astronomy is one of those sciences that we just can't test like we do other things. You
Mhm.
can't touch
all
it,
observation.
and you have to just look at it. So this is a way for kids to get their hands on astronomy in a way, even though,
Mhm.
we have pieces of cotton as spiral arms, not super realistic, but then,
No, but you get the idea of what, they've got them going both ways, they've got a central bar in the middle, and that's a nice representation of what spiral arms look like, so that's really cool.
Absolutely. And they enjoy it too. It keeps them occupied. So.
That's good.
Speaking of hands-on, I'm hoping the next experiment here isn't hands-on because it looks a little sticky. But Catherine, what have you got over there?
I got some, we call it GAC actually.
GAC?
Yeah, well
Is
that's
that
it.
a word?
I'm not too sure, but that's
Okay.
the nice term we give it.
Yeah, we call it oobleck when I make
Oobleck,
it.
yeah, from
Oobleck,
Dr.
yeah.
Seuss'
Dr.
book.
Seuss book, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's basically just cornstarch and water that I've mixed together. And you need to mix it up to the appropriate.
Careful with the
There you
sail
go.
here.
We don't want gack on the
You
sole.
You need to mix them together, and eventually it makes something like looks solid and looks liquid at the same time. And if you do this, there's about none sticking on my hand.
Look at that.
Aha.
Try that, Colin.
I've done
And
it
it's
before
in
with my
between the
kids.
liquid and solid. So what you do is you take some in between your fingers, and as you squish it between your fingers, it feels solid. But as you let go, it feels liquid.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, can I do that?
Of course.
Awesome.
Be careful with your computer.
Okay.
So it's only water and cornstarch.
GAC!
That's why it's called this.
Look at that. Colin,
So,
check this out here.
As
Hold
you're
up your hand.
squeezing it, you're removing the water
Look at that.
molecules from it.
Look at that.
I could have made it a bit thicker actually.
GAC!
So it's a fun thing to do with children at home. Although it is messy, I have to tell you
Yeah,
that. And
it
for some
is.
reason, everyone always wears black every time they make it. Like me this morning. But it's one of those things you can't stop playing
I
with
know.
it.
I've got pictures on my phone of my 7-year-old daughter playing with the oobleck that I made before I took it to the school to work with the kids. She's in there digging around, and it was great. We had a good time.
So this mixture is actually a non-Newtonian fluid.
Wow, that's neat.
It reacts with pressure.
So here's you and I say, oh, it's a non-Newtonian fluid.
Mhm.
Explain what a non-Newtonian fluid
Yes.
is.
Well, instead of, for instance, honey, when it gets dries a bit, it's going to become a bit more crystallized. You're going to put it in the microwave. It's going to become liquid again. This would not do that at all. Instead, it's under the pressure that it reacts. It changes substance matter under pressure, exactly.
Can I walk on that?
There actually been
Yes.
some experiments of bath made, and some people walked on it. But if you stop, you're going to sink in it.
Ah,
So if you do
keep
this
moving.
and
The Mythbusters did it.
keep on going, you sink in it. But
Mythbusters
if you
did
go
a
very
whole,
fast, you don't.
Yeah, Mythbusters did a whole bathtub crate, and you could run across it
Okay.
of the stuff.
So that's one of
you have to
the-
be quick.
Gotta be-
That's one of the experiments we like to do with children for chemistry event, for National Science and Technology Week as
Okay,
well.
super.
This is a good one when you're talking with kids about states of matter, right? Which they learn very young. Like my daughter's in grade 2, learning about states of matter, solid, liquid, gas. And you give them this and say, is it a solid or a liquid?
Mm.
And then you just let them talk and let them think and let them, because depending on what you do with it, it's both, right? So it's a great inquiry tool for kids just to start that curiosity, right? Ask them an interesting question, give them some stuff, and get out of the way. It's great stuff.
Not
Exactly.
gaseous,
Bring the
a little
hands-on
bit.
to events and activities like that. It's really important.
So what else have you got? You've got some Alka-Seltzer over here, I see.
Alka-Seltzer, yes. Oh, no. My hands
Is
are
that
messy.
just in case we ate the gack?
Gonna say, yeah,
I'm
a
not
little
too sure.
heartburn.
It's to make little rockets. So to make these little rockets, you need some
Rockets?
film
Yep.
canister,
Film canister rocket.
which are harder and harder to get by, I understand, because
That's
now
true,
with the
yeah.
digital era, those
Moving
film
my
canister
laptop
are less.
for a dream
That's a
rocket
good
work.
idea, actually. So here we go.
Really?
So these Alka-Seltzer are just the antacid. So if you imagine you eat, you have a big bottle of pop, and then on top of that you have pizza, and then maybe a poutine.
So this is your
You know,
stomach, basically.
this is your stomach, basically. So I put some water in it, and I have some vinegar because this is all the
Do we need a blast shield? Are we
exact
already-
nasty things you're eating. Then break it up. This is gonna make a mess. I'll actually use this.
For you.
Okay. So very quickly, I've mixed all of that. I'm gonna put the Alka-Seltzer, put it in, turn the film canister around, and we'll see the reaction going. And, it's really a good idea to
You've
step
done this
back.
before,
Oh,
right?
yes, I have.
Everybody
Okay.
clear the
And
launch pad.
I'm
So are
actually
we
really
good
afraid that I've put a
here,
bit. I'm actually going to remove a bit. I think I put too much.
So when chemistry becomes a
Should
strong.
we do it right here?
Okay, let's get ready.
She moves back farther.
I know she.
And the CO2 is going to build
Everybody
inside, and
Curious to watch.
it's going to create enough thrust for everything to move. So let's just wait until the
Peer in
reaction.
and see if it's going to do something.
Put your head right over it.
Oh, hey! Whoa, nice. Wow.
Ceiling. Well done.
Man down.
That's actually the vinegar. You can do it with just water and Alka-Seltzer, and it's just going to make a little reaction. It's just going to poof a bit.
Let's
But I
do
found
that
it-
again, but can Colin drink it this time? And then we'll see what happens. Really simulate that stomach experience.
I don't think you want the projectile that would result in me drinking it, my friend.
Okay, good stuff. Oh, that's a lot of fun.
But this is things I intend to do for the International Year of Chemistry,
Yes.
which is this year.
Right, yes.
And it celebrates actually Marie Curie's Nobel Prize, which she received in 1911. So it's also a nudge to women in science
Oh, excellent.
to use this day.
Excellent.
So these are all examples of things that teachers can do in the classroom, basically.
Exactly.
And help the kids learn different, yeah, wonderful.
Mhm.
Where can they go to get more information on this again?
Well, always on museum's website, sciencetech.technomuses.ca, which is a good one. But the International Year of Chemistry, there's actually another website, which is IYC2011.ca, which is the Canadian website.
Canadian
for the,
website, yeah.
Exactly. And there's contests, a YouTube contest about how you see chemistry, and I'm thinking of entering a brownie competition.
Nice.
A
So-
brownie competition.
Well, you know,
Okay, yeah.
cooking is like chemistry for hungry people. So
That's the kind of chemistry we like.
I'm guessing we could,
Absolutely.
I could maybe enter that. And there's
Yeah.
going to be a special stamp actually also coming out
Okay.
this year by Post Canada about chemistry.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both very much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that we've forgotten to cover today that you'd like to talk to the students and teachers about?
Well, actually, I just want to invite people to the International Year of Chemistry here at the museum. It's going to be from July 7th to 10th.
Great.
One of the activities I'm very, very interested about, and I'm hoping maybe your viewers could help me out. I want to show a movie outside on the lawn. It would be a scientifically challenged movie.
What does that mean
Scientifically
exactly?
challenged. It's a movie that presents science, but maybe in the wrong way, or it's not exactly exact.
Okay.
So I'm just needing to choose this movie now. So if your viewer has any ideas which movie we could
Right,
have,
something that you can deconstruct and make fun of
Exactly.
and tear apart. So
partly it's
Yeah.
entertaining, but
Entertaining,
scientifically
yes.
challenged.
Well,
Excellent.
if they do have some ideas, how can they contact you?
Just at my email, CEMOND@technomuses.ca.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too, just in case that audio didn't transfer well. And Melanie, how can they get a hold of you?
And lastly, well, they can get a hold of me. You could just go to the museum website, and you can get things like this. So you can become an astronomer all by yourself. So this is our star chart for April. So our website has these, and it's got all of the different constellations that you might want to see in the early spring sky. Now we have one of these for every month on our website, and people can go and download this and then go outside with it and maybe a flashlight or red light and sort of try to see if you can become a backyard astronomer yourself with some of our online resources. So these are in French and English on our website as well.
Fantastic. Colin, any last questions or comments?
this is always, I always wonder again, when kids come in and you do things like this, right? I know what the reaction of kids is,
Yeah.
right? What I want to ask is, how do you react to kids' reactions of either great chemistry experiments or looking through the 15-inch telescope the first time? How do you guys feel when you do
It's so
this?
fun. We're really sharing something and enjoying it. And often, like this experiment with the rockets, kids like, I want to do it again. It's like, okay, and I get as excited as they are and take all these things out.
What happens if you use nothing but vinegar and a bigger canister? And,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And they ask, can I do this? Okay, let's try.
What's it going to take to punch through the ceiling? You know?
It's easy to get carried away with that stuff. We have sometimes at the observatory, you know, like a young child coming to look through the telescope for the first time, and they see the Orion Nebula, which is a
Right.
really beautiful object in the Orion constellation, and they go, "Whoa! Like, what is that?" Like, they totally weren't expecting to see this object, and then you're able to tell them, you know, how far away it
Yes.
is and what it's made of, and their minds, you can just see like the imagination
Yes,
sparking.
you see it
and
sparking.
then for us,
Mhm.
it's amazing
I
to
know.
just get to be there for that.
Isn't
So
it fun?
that's why we're here every day.
I remember
It's
one
amazing.
time I did a star party at our high school, and I had my 8-inch telescope, and we were looking at Saturn, and a girl comes out and looks through. She went around, looked at the front of the telescope, came back. She said, "That's not real." That's right. She wouldn't believe until we sort of came. Oh no, that's that little dot in the sky. But it's that same thing. It's that wow. You can't believe you're actually doing this or seeing something that's that interesting. So it's so much fun.
It is great.
Yes.
I never get tired of it.
No.
And obviously, the museum is well represented by both of you. You both have an energy and passion about what you do. I'm sure that carries over with the kids.
Well,
and,
look at what we get to do.
Absolutely. Like-
That's my job.
Exactly.
Now, can we take this with us today? This gag stuff?
Well,
'Cause-
after a couple of
Cornstarch
days,
and
it's going
water,
to
brother.
smell like corn,
Okay.
but do make it at home.
But ants really like that as well.
Mm.
Oh,
You
well,
leave
we'll
it
keep
around,
that here.
so-
then. I don't need
Oh,
to-
and be careful when you throw it away, actually, so you don't plug your...
It's not good,
Oh,
right?
it's
And you
not
drank
great,
with it.
yeah. Melanie and Catherine, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We appreciate your time. And on behalf of Colin, Jagoe, and myself, we wish you continued success in the future and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having us.